seems incredible that it's already been 15 years since St. John Paul II came to Toronto and gathered with hundreds of thousands of young people for World Youth Day 2002. World Youth Day 2002 was an event that touched so many people. I mean, for us here at Salt and Light, we wouldn't even exist had it not been for World Youth Day 2002. So this week, we are remembering. We're celebrating and we're remembering, sharing our memories, but most importantly, we are reflecting on the impact of that event on all our personal lives. And today, to help us do a little bit of that, I'm joined by two actors who participated on that historic and memorable Way of the Cross that on the Friday night of World Youth Day took over one of the main arteries of Toronto, University Avenue. So here with me, I'm so happy, April Mullen. April played Veronica at the World Youth Day, at the Way of the Cross, and Byron Abalos, you were one of the animators, one of the narrators. So for people who maybe, I don't know what we're talking about, can you set it up a little bit, April? What was that Way of the Cross like?
I love that you said that we took over the heart of the city and the main vein, because we had been practicing in this little gymnasium, which was really warm, and there were little tiny stations, temporary stations, and that we'd been practicing for months and had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And when we walked out in Nathan Phillips Square, as far as you could see, in every direction, and at levels above us, you know, in condominiums, were
hanging off trees
of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And there was 12 of us, and we had been in a gymnasium.
Okay, so you guys never rehearsed it
No.
like on location?
Not until the day,
Never.
no, yeah. I think it was like a small school gym in like Etobicoke or something like that.
Like the size of the studio.
Okay, so
smaller.
wait, so still, for people who don't know what you're talking about, so you mentioned Nathan Phillips Square is in front of City
Where
Hall
it
in
began.
Toronto.
Station
and
one.
then where else did we go, Byron?
So that was the first station, was at Nathan Phillips Square. And then there were, I believe, 12 other stations all the way up University Avenue from Queen all the way up to Queen's Park, where the final station was. And it was this procession.
So
on
that's
these
like
giant
two
stages.
subway stops.
The stages themselves were massive, like 100 feet at least by 50 at least. And I couldn't believe the sound system we had. I remember thinking, they can all hear us. It was like you could hear a pin drop on University Avenue.
Yeah.
It was like the city had gone into a peaceful zone of like meditation. It was so different. The city was so different that day.
It was. Now back up also. You said there were only 12 of you? Because I look at the footage and it seems to me that
Like
there's
our
like
little
40
clan.
of you.
No, not really.
I mean, there was
So the two narrators,
there was two narrators,
Veronica, Jesus,
some characters, and then there was some
Mary.
ensemble
Yeah, a
people
little
who kind
ensemble.
of supported
Like the
the
chorus.
Might have been
scenes.
20 of us.
Yeah, I think so, or actually maybe a bit more.
Maybe a bit more.
And you had to walk, so even the distance from Nathan Phillips Square, you had to walk to the courthouse. And you
Everywhere.
didn't even
We
know how
walked at
long
every
that would
station.
take.
No.
No.
You know, the rehearsals were kind of like, it's going to be kind of like this, but you don't really know until the day.
I didn't expect something that grand. Did you?
It was pretty
No,
grand.
I guess there was no way really to imagine.
Okay,
That many people being there either. Like I never thought that many people would be
Yeah.
on the streets
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
And to be on to have these stages set up and to be on them for like 5-10
5
minutes,
minutes.
and then move on
And
to
then move
another
on,
stage.
and you'd
was,
walk for, I don't know, a minute, 5 minutes. I don't know how
Yeah.
long those walks were. Okay, so wait, back up.
Yes.
Because how long did you rehearse for this? Like
2 months, I think.
I think it was probably about 2 months.
Once a week.
And how did you even find out about it? Because you guys were both in theater school at
We
the
were in
time?
theater school.
Yes, April and I went to Ryerson Theatre School together in Toronto, and I think the way I came about it goes back even further to World Youth Day in Rome previously.
Okay.
Because I went to
Did you
World
go?
Youth Day in Rome. Yeah, I went as when I was in high school. I won this Catholic Student Leader Award, and one of the things was like, oh, by the way, you can also come to Rome and join this contingent.
That's a
and
nice
I was
award.
like, oh, awesome. So that was actually my first exposure to World Youth Day, and then so when I heard about it coming back, and I think we might have heard it through the Catholic Chaplaincy, or maybe from the Office of Catholic Youth. I know I was
or
getting
you
some
saw
messages
a
from there.
posting on a board
Or
somewhere.
somewhere, and then we
Like
went out for
auditions?
it.
Yeah, there was
And
auditions.
you had to go to an audition?
Yeah, there were
What was
auditions.
What was the audition like? Did you have to do a monologue?
They were interviews and a monologue. I
Really?
did a monologue.
I don't remember.
So you had
That was
to
50
like
years
act.
ago.
Yeah,
Well, I guess you had to act.
You
I
had
mean,
to act, for
okay.
sure.
And then rehearsals, I guess, would have been.
But there was no way of knowing what it was about to be either. Like when we started the journey of the Way of the Cross that night, I think it impacted us heavily and emotionally on a way that we never saw coming. Like in the rehearsals, you would be kind of mimicking what you thought you should be doing, but at the time it just sort of, the feeling of all of those people being in such like a
The
peaceful
energy.
and awe place,
Yeah.
it just changed everything.
Yeah,
Like you could never be ready in a performance. Like
No.
as an actor, it was just like everything's out the window. You're just so present in awe.
Like
of
there's no dress
everything
rehearsal,
around you.
no cue to
It was
cue,
unbelievable. No dress rehearsal.
and no second night performance. Like
No.
it's,
No, it
that's
was
it. It's
that was
done.
it. One time
That's it.
deal.
I remember just recently I was telling my wife about it and trying to describe what it was like. And first of all, after she stopped laughing at what I looked like 15 years ago, after that, I started getting into like, well, how did it feel? What was it like? And it to this day is probably one of the most unique, creative and personal experiences I've ever had. To have that opportunity, and for me to like, I remember the feeling of being on the microphone and then hearing the echo of my voice down
Through the
Yes.
streets. I
University
remember that.
Avenue.
Yes.
Just,
Yes.
and there was something about that experience, and I try to describe it to my wife of like it felt like it had to do with the energy and the connection, and I think for just the Catholics there telling this story that's so central to everyone's belief. And it was moving. Like I was telling her that I honestly felt like I was a vessel for something greater that day, and that we were all a part of
you
this,
were.
telling this story. And it was very moving. And I remember being at the station where Jesus was being put on the cross, and me and my fellow animator. This is in the script, but we
Yeah.
were holding each other weeping at the
Yeah.
foot of the cross, and the camera wasn't on us because it wasn't about us.
No, but
like, we were
I think there is a
talking.
shot of you
Oh, is
guys
there?
holding each other. Yes.
Yeah, and we were just like profoundly moved.
And that's like the
just
most,
had-
the massive, the cross was like.
It was enormous.
40 feet
It was
tall.
a giant
High.
cross.
And he was wired, and it was the only
That's
time
right.
that he had ever tried it, was just while it was happening. He was wired and being slowly brought up. It was so beautiful.
Oh my gosh! So,
So
none of that was
beautiful.
rehearsed. Okay, so
Right in front of the parliament, our parliament.
right in front of Queen's Park, in front of the park. So the creative process. I know. I mean, we were talking about Father Robert Gendreau, who was the director. I think he's a great man. I'm sure it was a great experience. Was he? You said there was maybe 20 of you, 12 of you. You don't remember. How was that creative process? Did he come in and like? Did you have a chance as an actor to give a little bit of who you are, or was he like? How was that process of developing the actual action? Do you remember?
It's a little vague because again, 15 years ago. But my sense of it is that he came in with a very strong vision,
Yeah.
Yeah,
in terms
okay.
of like having ideas about blocking, and because he also knew what the set was going to be like,
Yeah.
so what those constraints were going to
So
be.
he.
I think certainly there was, particularly for me as one of the two people who actually got to speak live, I feel like a lot of who I was allowed to be put into that performance,
Right.
and that, the things he would direct on would be like louder, or
Yeah.
that's not how you say that properly in French, or that Latin is kind of incorrect.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do feel like, it was like me there
Right.
being a part of that. So it was that kind of
Yeah.
odd thing where it was partially like me as a person, but also like me as this narrator or an animator,
Yeah.
helping to tell this story,
Yeah.
supported by, of course, the
Of
entire
course.
cast.
Yeah. Now you, April, you played Veronica. That's a central role. It's not scriptural. She's not in scripture.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of figure that whole thing?
It was amazing with the rest of us, like the cast. We never spoke, so it was all through just a visual tableau
Yeah.
storytelling. And he was really big. I remember about being really big on tableau, like take your
Yes.
time,
Yes.
breathe and be in the moment. He was really big on that, and make sure to interact with one another and just take your time and make big gestures, because there'll be lots of people. We didn't know how many or how big.
A lot of people.
But
Yeah.
I do remember him telling us to really allow and amplify your
Right.
physical
Like
and emotional.
exaggerate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you didn't have to, because in the moment it was just
Yeah.
out of our control. It was just kind of
So-
like Byron said, it was a vessel of something so much bigger.
So that moment, I mean, there's this scene between Veronica
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus. You have your prop that you brought, actually. I'm
All
so
I
happy you
felt
brought.
that day was so much love that day. I remember feeling when I was looking at, it was like it was a completely different experience than anything I've ever felt. I just felt like it wasn't us, it wasn't me, it was just something so much bigger. And I remember wiping his feet, and I remember putting my hand on his shoulder and just looking at him, and I just had tears in my eyes, and I was dreading what had to come for him, for not the actor, just what was coming, and I get goosebumps.
So, but
still.
is it okay? So tell me about that, both of you.
It's such a feeling.
But is it?
Yeah.
But is it emotional because you have all this spiritual and faith history, as well as being an actor that's vulnerable, as well as the actual physical strain that you're in? Like, is it?
It was everything. Like, for example, when we stepped out, Nathan Phillips, it was pouring rain. The minute we stepped out, it was pouring, torrential downpour. And I thought, are all of these people just going to vanish, or what's going to happen? And literally, as we left the first station, the sun came through like if it was rays of, it was so beautiful. And then it was like we were backlit, it dried up. And by the time we were at the Parliament, it was completely dark. It was pitch black, but it was a beautiful, warm summer night.
Yeah.
It was everything just worked.
What an experience. Would you like to do it again?
Like press rewind and then press play, yes.
No, like if you had it been like a week run to do it more than one?
I think
it
no.
was a standalone thing.
Yeah, I think it was a thing that was of the moment that captured the spirit and the energy of that World Youth Day. For me, World Youth Day in itself was so celebratory, and just the spirit that kind of came over the entire town, not just from Catholics, but from or Christians, but from everyone. I mean, I have so many great moments of walking up Avenue Road doing the pilgrimage, and having that similar moment of rain at the Papal Mass, and then the helicopter with the Papal Mass, and then it clears up. And we're like, what's happening? This is like too good. And then the smaller moments of just the interactions with people you would meet. Like, I met one of my best friends today. I met doing this project, and like I said, hey, there's these theater companies in town. You should audition for them. And he started auditioning. And like I was one of his sponsors at his wedding. He was like the MC at my wedding, and we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for this thing. So in terms of impact, and that has had a very personal impact for me in terms of a friendship. But this, it's so unique what the Way of the Cross was, and I wouldn't want to do it again because I think it was so special and so unique in what it was that. I think it would almost be a disservice to try to recreate it. Yeah,
it's interesting that you said that Way of the Cross kind of, you didn't use the word encapsulate, but kind of encapsulated the whole World Youth Day experience, and maybe for you guys more so than for someone like me. But I'm curious to know what that, and you shared a little bit, but that overall World Youth Day experience, because you probably didn't get a chance to live a lot of the other World Youth Day events because you were rehearsing until Friday. So what was that overall World Youth Day experience for you, April?
Just because of how incredible that day was. From there, you're just you're in a different place. And then we went to Strawberry Island, and then we were there at the Papal Mass. I was with you when it was raining, and so we were able to celebrate on the Sunday it was?
Yes.
And ours was on the Friday. So we were able to just be a part of that as well.
Relax.
The whole thing was just
And you got to go to the airport for the departure.
For the departure.
What was that like?
It was surreal.
It was surreal. And we were in these places and venues and hallways that we had never seen before. And there was so much security, but I don't know where they were. And then it was,
Yeah, and then, just
and
like
then he just walked
the Pope
by.
rolls out.
Yeah, he just walked
being
by.
in this kind of mechanism that's kind of helping him get to the
But he was always so strong. I remember being close to him, watching him walk by, and I thought, oh, he has to go up those stairs because it was a very small plane and he had to go up the stairs. And I thought, I wonder how that will work. And then he got there and he had so much strength and had no problem walking up the stairs and giving his amazing thank you and gratitude wave goodbye.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such an image of strength and faith and what what that brings to a person's life.
Yeah. How much you guys are still in the arts, you're still performing, directing, performing. I mean, this is what you guys do for a living, which I think is amazing. How much has that experience, and I'd say that project was probably unique in your artistic career, how much has that made a difference to you, do you think, in your in your career as an actor, as a performer? Like, do you think it's influenced in your professional life?
To me, honestly, it sits in a much more personal sphere when I think about it, when I reflect about it. In terms of a professional, I mean, again, I just think it was just such a grand and unique experience. Probably the largest live project I will ever be a part of.
Yeah.
And also to have that be televised all across the world. I remember hearing from
everywhere.
Yes.
relatives in Australia saying, "Hey, did we see you on the TV?"
For years, too. For
Yes.
years,
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
Still.
broadcasted.
Still.
And
15th
I
anniversary.
remember
yeah.
one of our classmates, Tim, who you know well, telling me that about the surreal moment he had when he turned on the TV, and on his screen was the Pope at Strawberry Island watching another screen with my face on it, and saying like, "I just needed to take a second because that really weirded
The
me."
Pope is just watching Byron.
The Pope is watching Byron on TV. That's too much.
That's funny.
It's such strong and personal memories from that.
Do you-
And it wasn't even the end for us, because we were fortunate
It
enough
wasn't the end.
to
It continued.
go to Rome to
That's
for that
right, a year
handover
later.
of the World Youth
The
or
World
6
Youth
months
Cross.
later, yeah. Yeah.
to Germany.
Well, tell me about that, because I was there on that trip. What was that trip like, April?
That was even far surpassed like what I expected going in. I didn't know that it was going to be so personal and that we were going to be able to spend time with the Pope and actually meet him. I had no idea going in that was part of the
How
plan.
much were you in character? Because you were dressed like Veronica and you had your veil with you.
I did have my veil with me. Do you want to see the veil?
We do want to see the veil.
I have to show
so you
it.
don't. So I'm amazed that you still have. I mean, of course you still
course.
have it.
It's so beautiful. I'll go like this for the wall.
So, but you don't carry it with you everywhere you go. do
No.
you? Is it
this
framed?
is the first time it's been out. Look, it still has our sweat. We worked hard, people.
So, why do you? This is like such a ridiculous question, but why do you still have it?
I think in a person's life, there are like, I don't know, a handful of very solid moments that make an impact that last, your entire lifetime. And those moments stand out, and something with, I'm lucky that I have a symbol to sort of
To hold on
look
to,
at,
yeah.
or a physical thing to look at, a
Yeah.
material thing to look at. But it's more than that. It's just, it made a huge impact on my life. I'll never forget it. And I feel like that going through that day just changed me as a person at the end of that Friday night. It was like a renewal and it was a
Interesting.
rebirth. It was different.
Did you
from
show?
that day
Did you show
forward.
the veil to the Holy Father?
Yeah, he loved it. And he said,
Yeah.
Veronica.
He
And
called you Veronica.
Yes, and he touched the veil and blessed the veil. And
Yeah.
I just feel an immense amount of gratitude when I think of World Youth Day, because really we had no idea. It was this little paper saying come to auditions. I just had no idea the impact and the outcome that would happen from it. And yeah.
Yeah. Wow. See, I was not able. That was my only night off, so I actually did not go. I watched it on TV. I think it was like a TV at a bar. Actually, we saw it on the screen, and the images, like you said. I mean, to be there live must have been an experience, but to watch it on television. I remember speaking with the people from the CBC, and the whole thing, it was like 26 cameras.
So many
And
cameras.
I mean, there were so many locations and the aerial camera, and none of that was rehearsed.
Nope.
None of that was
It
rehearsed.
just was all entrusting. Like, it felt like we were just trusted for this larger vision, and we all just followed. It was such an interesting.
Yeah, it's a great
I
exercise.
remember them
in
saying there's
letting
going to be
go.
26 cameras, and I thought, interesting.
Yeah,
Where
how
will
are they
they all
gonna
be?
do it? Yeah.
And there was a helicopter too,
Yeah.
shooting us. And
You probably didn't even notice the
You
cameras.
didn't.
I didn't. Yeah, I was
You
going to say
don't.
I
You
didn't
don't
notice it at
know.
all.
No,
Nope.
you probably
Yeah,
didn't
we were
notice
so
the cameras.
in the
we're so
playing of it.
focused.
You know what? Again, it's and again, to kind of, not that I'm trying to make a spiritual connection, but this idea of letting go, I think is something that in theater school we were always told, check your brain at the door and let go and
This was
trust.
really let
and
go.
you really have to trust your partner or your fellow actors. You have to trust your director. We have to trust Christ. What is that balance? Is a difficult balance. I mean, do you?
It was surrendering. I remember just it happened easily that day because it was like way bigger than you could ever control in any way. You're just like, I'm a part of this amazing surrender.
Yeah. Do you remember anything going wrong? Not that like disaster, but anything
No
going wrong
idea.
as sometimes things go?
felt
I don't
like it was
remember
incredible.
anything.
No.
It
So like
felt
you didn't
it went
forget any lines
flawless.
or?
Not that I remember.
No,
I
nobody
mean, I
tripped,
probably
nobody
the French
fell.
were wrong. Probably. Maybe my Latin wasn't great. But,
Station 5, Station 6. I don't know.
I'm sure, but it didn't. And even if I did, and if we all did, it didn't matter.
No.
Because I don't know, the feeling and the scale of everything was more than that. And I think what we were communicating was something so personal. And this is one of the things that I've always appreciated about religion and church is this idea of we celebrate in community, but there's also a very personal connection,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
you have your
yes.
personal relationship,
Yes.
but there's something about doing it in community that feels very
Yeah.
powerful, and that we've come here to share this experience of trying to understand ourselves better and our world better, and to learn how to be better people, and to let go to the higher power of our world,
Yeah.
and to say, okay, maybe I don't need to control everything so much, and I can just be open
Right.
and go for the ride that way.
Yeah.
I love that, and you have to remember, like, at that time, Toronto was going through a very difficult time. There was SARS in the city, and blackouts and hydro problems, like, and I
And
felt like
9/11 had just happened.
9/11 had just happened.
9
We
months
like
before.
infused the city through that artery, like
Yeah.
with hope. I feel like we brought Toronto and
Yes.
the country and Canada, and then everywhere it was showcased and broadcast, it was a very powerful message of hope and love and youth.
Yeah.
Like, what's
Yeah.
coming, the seed of positivity was there. And I think that Toronto and our country and even internationally, we really needed that at the time. So it was it was a heavy time for
Did
Toronto.
you, again, I don't know, put you on the spot. Have you watched any of the other World Youth Day Waves of the Crosses? Like
No.
from Sydney?
No, have you?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
It's like,
Movie
I don't,
night,
you
movie
don't
night.
want, no, but maybe you don't want to.
Yeah. Maybe not. Oops. Popcorn, that's all I was thinking. Just kidding.
No, because I have heard, and it's hard for me because I was also part of it, but I've heard that the way Toronto did it was perfect, because, and I guess here's my question: when we do, and you guys are performers, when we try to reenact, maybe that's not the best word, something from Scripture, I find it very difficult to be realistic.
Right.
Because we can't, unless you're Mel Gibson and The Passion of the Christ. And to go to the other extreme, which is to be too, so you can't be literal, do you want to be, so I think that Father Robert really found the middle ground there.
Father Robel did, and I think the tableaus worked really beautifully because it felt like images from the past. It didn't feel like we were trying to be present. It was as if, and it was immersive. I love that we were in the middle of the community.
Yeah.
So a lot of places I heard Way of the Cross might be, much more closed in. Ours was really immersive and involved the audience, and they were part of the performance. Whoever was there that night was part of the performance.
Yeah, and I think that's because of the way it was done, it allowed me as a viewer to make it my experience,
Yes.
because you're not telling me this is exactly
Nope.
what it looked like.
Right.
Exactly.
It's
You
alienating.
can project your imagination.
Exactly,
your
I could predict the fact that Simon of Cyrene is this young man in a scooter, in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
more than just a token. So maybe in closing, there's so many good memories here. World Youth Day as a whole, we know the impact of that one night, but what do you think is that long-lasting legacy of World Youth Day for you guys, for the church in Canada, for Canada as a whole? What would you think is the impact that World Youth Day had on this country?
Well, I think there's two answers, I guess. For me personally, it changed everything from that day forward. I felt an inner strength and surrender, a feeling of surrender that I had never felt before, and I've carried that with me every day since then. And then I love this thought of when I talk to people about World Youth Day, or they have a memory and they're completely removed from the community or have no idea and they were just walking by one day, all of them say the same thing, and I feel like that's always stayed in my mind, is they say, I remember that. The city was so alive. I remember the kids singing in the subways.
Yeah.
What was with the singing? Everybody was singing. The streets was full,
And
full of
the backpacks.
song
Yeah.
and music. There was so much music and color. And so when I think of World Youth Day, I think of the feeling of alive and music and color and hope. And I think that's what the impact it brought to Toronto when you ask anybody about World Youth Day.
Byron?
And for me, I think there's something about bringing everyone from across the world that reminded me that we're all like brothers and sisters, that we're all neighbors, you know, regardless of any difference in background, cultural background. And that message of unity and that reminder that we're all in this together, and be kind to each other. And I think that was very resonant for me. And also this idea, I mean, it was like, you are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. That idea to young people that your time isn't in the future, that your time is now, right? And to be present in the day and to do what you can to live your life to its fullest and to help others along the way.
Yeah,
you know, I think for
true.
me, like service and has always been a key component to what makes the faith so strong. It is like, what is our compassion and how do we treat each other? How do we treat people who don't fit within our religion, our culture, and our views of how we grew up, and how do we expand and just push ourselves a little further to understand. With all of the joy and the love and the exuberance that youth bring, all of that kind of just came across in Toronto, and I hope also kind of washed across Canada to a certain extent as well.
Absolutely. Which is why we are remembering, because I think sometimes, especially young people, they have no sense of, you know, memory. So thank you for sharing these memories with us.
Thank you for having us.
Helping us not
Thank
forget.
you.
April Mullen, she played Veronica for The Way of the Cross in Toronto in 2002, and Byron was one of the narrators or animators for The Way of the Cross. We've heard from them. It'd be great to hear from you. You can visit us on Facebook. Just look up Salt and Light TV and share your World Youth Day stories with us. And if you want to relive World Youth Day 2002, and in fact relive all the World Youth Days dating back to 1985, go to our website, wyDcentral.org.
Bring some popcorn.
And bring some popcorn, absolutely. Thank you for being with us. May you continue being the salt of the earth and the light of the world.